Oh, hey folks. So we are at the beginning of an official problem here in the US and globally. So this is a pandemic. So we're going to take a small departure from what we usually do. And I'm going to give you some information that I have that may or may not be helpful to you. But certainly it's useful and necessary information. So the first thing is coronavirus literally means flu. So when you hear the word coronavirus, it's not anything new or spectacular. Like coronavirus has been around since, well, since we knew what the flu was. This particular version of the coronavirus is COVID-19 or coronavirus disease 2019, because that's when the virus was discovered at the end of 2019. Now, this particular virus is problematic because in a normal flu, you would have symptoms when you are contagious, right? So they call it the shedding cycle. So typically when you have the flu and you're in your active contagious time, like people know you clearly look sick, you're clearly having flu symptoms, and people clearly know to stay away from you. However, the problem with this particular version of the virus is that you're asymptomatic or you don't show any symptoms for 3 to 5 days before you start showing symptoms. So the real issue here among many is that you're literally walking around for almost a solid week infecting people with the virus and not even knowing it because you feel fine, which is why everybody's trying to encourage people to self-quarantine right now, because we're trying to minimize the exponential increase of infections. So this particular coronavirus, because it's so highly contagious and it's so hard to know when you're actually infected with it or not, when it transmits, it's a lot like that old commercial for the shampoo, and then they told 2 friends, and then they told 2 friends, and then they told 2 friends, and you go from 2 people to like 100 people by the end of the commercial. So the coronavirus is kind of like that. Now, the things to understand about viruses and vaccines and how this works and why this is important that we self-quarantine is because, first of all, viruses are everywhere all the time, constantly. Mother Nature is not joking around. Sometimes if you take a microbiology class, you could possibly come away thinking that Mother Nature is trying to kill us all, honestly, because there are so many things out there that are actively challenging our ability to remain alive on the planet. So, when we talk about the Darwinian law about only the strong survive, this is a biology thing, not other things. So here's the thing. So the viruses are everywhere. What will happen typically is when a virus enters your body, it will enter your body and it will check out literally the profile of your immune system and then make modifications. And then what it does is it stores that information so that the next wave of viral soldiers that it sends out has all this information already and knows where all the security measures and exit plans are in your immune system so that it can work around it. So literally every new strand of virus we get that didn't die off because of your immune system and is laying dormant somewhere, or whatever it is that viruses do when they're not actively starting war on your body, when this happens, when the virus resurges and becomes a new strain, it becomes a new strain that your body doesn't necessarily have the defenses for or recognizes because it's mutated based on the old information about how your body was defending itself. Now, this is why we take vaccines that are from last year's virus and not the current year, because we have no way of predicting how these viruses are going to mutate and come back, right? So there's that. With this particular virus, with COVID-19, what we don't have is a lot of information about it, right? And again, you can't predict how a virus is going to mutate when it comes back. So one of the other challenges with this particular virus is that there's really no known immunity to it that we're aware of. So this means that even you, young folks, and God forbid you people who have small children, are prone to not only getting the virus, but we don't know what else could happen as a result of being exposed to prolonged exposure to it. Now, when it comes to people dying from the virus, a lot of people say that it's old people. Well, we're just going to thin off the herd. Too many old people anyway, which is, by the way, a really callous, sucky way to think about things. It might seem very pragmatic and practical to you, but it's very cruel and very arrogant to assume that you're not going to be the person being removed by some type of viral warfare from nature. So the other thing about this is that it's not just the elderly, it's anybody who's immunocompromised, anybody who's got health issues that make their immune systems work harder without this virus like landing on them. All of these things are problematic. So that part is an issue as far as people catching the virus from other people who are being contagions and not even knowing it. The other thing to keep in mind, and this is the real concern when it comes to pandemics, when you're in a hospital, an ICU unit is where you take people that need breathing tubes and respiratory assistance, that need critical care because they're very, very, very seriously sick. People who come down with the people who are heavily taxed by the COVID-19 will need intensive care units. They're going to need critical care if we're going to keep them alive. The problem is hospitals typically, because that level of care, critical care, ICU, is so rare. There's maybe 1 ICU bed to 20 hospital beds, 30 hospital beds. And when we're talking about respiratory isolation, if we need to isolate somebody, isolation rooms are even fewer. So then it's like 1 isolation room to every 50 or 100 hospital beds. So if you've got a whole bunch of people that are coming down with the same thing that requires urgent critical care and or isolation, you're not going to have enough hospital beds for them. The other problem is that the medical staff is being exposed to this and they're getting sick from it too. So we have less of them working at any given time, which means that they're going to be more short-staffed. ICU units require a much more labor-intensive hands-on presence. So the more people we have in ICU, the more labor and resources we have to draw from other parts of a hospital. And the hospitals are going to be overloaded, which means that if you have a medical emergency like an asthma attack, how many people do you know have asthma, right? Or you're having, like a stroke, or maybe you're having a cardiac incident, or maybe you're having any number of things. Maybe you got in a car accident, and you've got brain swelling going on. We need to put you in ICU quickly so your brain doesn't kill you because it's running out of. Anyway, all of these things are going to be problematic if those hospital beds are already taken up by other people who are also in just as critically ill condition that got there before you did. So the thing about it is medical professionals are medical professionals, and we love and respect them because their job is to keep us alive. So it's not like they're going to make the decision about who to throw out of an ICU bed to make room for you. They're not going to make decisions about who requires more urgent care that we have to voluntarily choose who's going to die now because we have to take them out of ICU and put somebody else in there. They can't make those decisions. We shouldn't ask them to. So unless you're prepared to make life and death decisions involving other people or be on the receiving end of life or death decisions by other people because they need the bed, then you go ahead and, keep telling yourself that the coronavirus is no big deal and I'm just going to go happy, skippy, walking around, infecting everyone. So there's that. Now, the upside is that in spite of every effort to kill off the poor, and by the way, this also adversely affects the poor. So for those of you who are lucky enough to have good jobs and good support systems and, medical leave and time off and vacation days and all this sort of stuff, the thing that you're missing is that for the rest of the country, and we're talking about a good large portion of the country, they are contract employees. They're contractors. They're not full-time employees. They don't have medical benefits or any other like unemployment or time off or vacation days. They don't have that kind of protection. A lot of other people are what they call, this is where the term gig economy comes from. A lot of people are working 2 and 3 gigs or side jobs, little pieces of jobs like Uber driving, grocery delivering, babysitting, dog walking, all this little sort of stuff, to pay their bills because there are no jobs available to them. The other is that if you are poor and you have children and these schools shut down, where are your kids going to go? Like you have to choose between staying home to keep an eye on the kids and make sure they're safe, right? Or going to work with what little bit of work you can get and making money with what little bit of the paycheck you get, right? Because your employer's certainly not going to give you time off. And a lot of these jobs, the less you get paid, the worse they treat you. So in a lot of these jobs, if you take that kind of extended time off, it's the equivalent of resigning from the job. So basically you're looking at being put in a position where you're unofficially quitting your job so that you can stay home and keep an eye on your kids so that they're safe and nothing happens to them in your absence. Or you got to go to work for your low pay, not worth anything but just barely paying your bills and keeping food on the table job while you've got children, small children at home or teenagers, running amok. Think about that for a second. So these are some god awful choices that a lot of people are being forced to make right now because of the situation that we're in. And don't forget, this also, keep in mind that people put their children in daycares not because they want to, but because they don't have a choice, right? So if they don't have a choice and they have to put their children in daycare in the first place, why would anybody think they suddenly got a choice that they can stay home with them? So that's what we're dealing with. And I know we're all losing sleep right now. We are all losing sleep. So some things that may or may not help. Now here's the helpful part. So now you understand what that's about, right? Here are some things that may help. One, we're going to get through this. We're going to get through this. And honest to God, on a mass level, like every day of this administration, many of us have been asking, what is it going to take? What is it going to take? At what point and how much and how bad do things have to get before you finally start seeing what the rest of us are seeing? Well, now we're starting to see exactly how much it's going to take. And hopefully this will be enough to turn the hearts of people, and open their eyes, to what we're actually dealing with and what the rest have been seeing the entire time. So there's that. The other, if you, and this is for me personally, you don't have to buy into this, but the goddess has risen. So the goddess has been rising for years and decades now. All this pushback against women's rights, all this pushback against, everything that is female centric, and also the rise, and the power that's come with being acknowledged and taken seriously for a change with the Me Too movement and all the other things that come with women's issues and struggles in this world in a heavily skewed male-dominated society. It's all taking a back seat now. The goddess has risen and she's been rising. And as she's been rising, there's been a lot of pushback by people who don't want to let go of the old way of doing things. So the thing about it is, one of the things that we're looking at is not that, the goddess is going to rise and she's going to take over society and we're going to become a matriarchal society instead of a patriarchal society. No, that's not at all. The goddess is rising and the goddess has risen officially because she deserves a seat at the table also, an equal seat at the table. Women deserve an equal seat at the table and they deserve to be taken seriously, and their contributions and value in this world should be regarded with the same open-minded flexibility, consideration, and generosity that we give to the men, right? We're not dolls that you pull out of a box, that you push a couple buttons and pull a string and we automatically fall into the desired behavior because that's all you're ever allowed to be because you have a set of ovaries. And that's not it at all. So as the goddess is rising and has risen, and now we're really feeling, Mama has come home and she is not joking. And if you're not sure what that means or how that applies, consider the fact that your mother, not your father, your mother always had the uncanny ability to appear when you were up to no good and somehow always knew when something was going on. And she didn't announce it and she didn't broadcast. She didn't necessarily take it to task immediately. She gave you a chance to see where you were going to go with this and literally caught you by the collar before it got too bad, right? And then you suddenly knew just how omnipresent Mother was. So Paying attention doesn't always mean screaming about things. Sometimes paying attention means quietly watching and giving people a chance to do better, right? So she's been giving us a chance to do better. And now she's stepping in because, again, the question we've all been asking for a very long time now is, what is it going to take? How much worse does it have to be? How bad do things have to get before everybody else starts seeing what we're seeing? So 2020 is not going to be an easy year, and I swear to God, I knew something was going to be spread around generously and indiscriminately this month. I thought it was going to be STDs, I'm not going to lie. But apparently I was way off base of that. It's not sexually transmitted diseases. This is respiratory transmitted diseases on a global level. So this is some huge stuff. With that said, it's not going to be an easy year. We've got some quiet lulls like as we go along, but it's gonna ramp up again, closer to summer. And if you go back and read the year ahead report, I talk about that because we can see the patterns coming. So this is not the time to hoard toilet paper. And for the love of God, for you people who are buying like 26,000 rolls of toilet paper, like, what is in your diet? Oh my God. But it is a time to plan and reprioritize how we're living our lives and how we can better and more effectively live our lives with the resources, the limited resources that we have available to us at any given time, okay, so that we can be more flexible and more prepared if these things arise or similar circumstances that really impact our ability to maintain our normal schedules arises again. I'm not a prepper, or I'm not a doomsday prepper, and I'm not one of these people who's convinced that the end of the world is coming. Pray! Oh my God, right? That's not me. But this is to say that complacency breeds ignorance and laziness. Honestly, laziness in activity, laziness in thinking, laziness in problem solving. Complacency and comfort can make people very, very self-absorbed and short-sighted and insensitive. And we've been comfortable for a long time. So I don't know when this is going to end, and I'm not even going to hazard a guess because it's just not appropriate right now. This profiteering off of misfortune like this is not okay. So I'm not going to use this to beat my chest and say, oh, I predict that it's going to end in 3 weeks or whatever. Like, there are some things we don't need to be right about, and there's been a lot of things in the last few months that I really did not want to be right about. So with this, we just have to kind of, do what the CDC and the World Health Organization are recommending as best we can, and try to get some sleep, try to get some rest, and do what you got to do to kind of get through the day, as it were, and know that you are loved. So know that you are loved. The one phenomenal thing about mothers is that, they know who we are. They know where we came from. They know without any doubt in their mind, who is partially responsible for this person and how they turned out in life, because there's no denying who your mother is. So a lot of what motherhood is doing what seems like the right thing to do to protect your loved ones, even if it hurts them in the short term. God, my hair's so dry, sorry. So, Mother loves us. Mother Nature loves us. And she's doing what she can to protect us from our own shortcomings. So, there is that. We're going to get through this. We are loved. We are going to get through this. There's nothing fair about life, and that's why we have to be fair, because if we're not fair, there's no fairness at all in the world. And in the meantime, I will be giving you guys some fun things to keep your mind occupied. So astrological challenges. We'll be having some astrological riddles and stuff coming up, little clips to keep your brain going on something other than, the crazy making wheels, right? So we'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.